Welcome back to another episode of That Video Game Podcast, the first of two very special episodes. I'm your host, Boston, and joining me as always is Moonpier.
Hi, happy holidays, so on and so forth, whatever you celebrate. Hopefully it was good. This is 2 days or 1 day after the fact, I believe.
Yes, after Christmas. And the Nimp.
I just hope you have an extra day off and you got to sleep on.
That's right.
Nope.
That's all I can hope for anybody.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I hope that you didn't have to see family that you didn't want to see. How's that?
That's right. That's the real hope.
See, that's easy enough for me because they're on the other side of an ocean. So
Perfect. Excellent. This is our first of our two special episodes, sort of putting a cap on the end of the year. This week we're going to do the top 10. We're going to take a look at our favorite hits and misses of this year. Misses means games we missed, not bad games. We don't do that anymore. And then next year
this
will
isn't
be
critical misses.
That's right. Next week will be the 2023 predictions. We talk about our probably hilariously wrong predictions for this past year, and talk about our probably hilariously wrong and probably already wrong predictions for 2023. And so let's talk about our top 10. If this is the first time you're listening, let's give you a little bit of background information. We haven't seen each other's lists, so these are in a sealed envelope to be opened here very shortly. Unlike the normal episode, we kind of let each person have their moment. This is about their list. This is about their pick for their slots, so they get to sort of hop up on the soapbox for a little bit and say, this game's great, I loved it, here's why. We don't really have rules about what's on people's top 10. Yeah, you want to put a game that came out 20 years ago on your top 10 because it got a re-release on backwards compatibility and you loved it this year? Great. That can be on your list. Yeah.
This is especially important for next year's list because P3P and P4G are coming to Xbox in January.
Look at that.
So get ready
for
a Persona-heavy top 10.
That's right. So there's nothing... Well, you want to put you want to have 2 games on your list out of your top 10? Great. It's cool. Whatever. We're old. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yes. We do this for quote-unquote fun.
That's right. I have roped these two guys into my quote-unquote fun. We really try not to spoil stuff in our list. If we're going to spoil anything, we'll give a short heads up. I'll mark it in the thing, but that's not really kind of the point. We are covering games that came out from December 2021 until December 2022. So if there's some stuff missing here, you're like, hey, I can't believe you guys didn't play this thing that came out on December 8th. It's because recording was done. Surprise. Yes. So, don't that'll be in next year's top 10. And then we're going to alternate through the list. So start with Moon, we go to Nimp, and myself for each position. We're going to go over sort of our sections here. We're going to talk about our year in gaming. Seemed to work out pretty well last year. We're going to go over our best old game. Didn't come out this year. Played it this year and we loved it. 2022's Alpha Protocol. That is the kind of diamond in the rough B game, kind of the unpolished gem we enjoyed and loved during 2022. Honorable mentions. Stuff that just didn't make it into the list for some reason, likely because this was a banger of a year. And talk about your community game of the year. We're going to go through the actual top 10, and we'll talk about games I missed, which is totally not a list that just grows into a giant thing as we talked about our top 10.
Nothing at all.
That's right. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's start with you, Moon. How was let's talk about your year in gaming, your overall wrap-up. How did 2022's year in gaming go for you?
Not great. The games were fine. I was the problem. It's not you, it's me kind of situation with video games this year.
Right.
I was discussing it with Nimp while a bit pre-show. Like normally I can usually clear out like a good between 20 and 30 like completions for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I think this year I literally did 14.
Right.
Like my time, like due to a bunch of different circumstances, like my time has shrunk considerably. So like I am more than happy to jump on the, it's a 7-hour game.
That's right.
No problem.
It's 3 hours. Heck yeah.
Yeah, he says, when looking at his old game award, thinking, why would I do that to myself? But, it was fine. Like, some of the games, like, the big quote-unquote games were as expected this year, if I'm completely honest.
Okay.
I think this might be the very first year where I have, like, 70% of my list is not a AAA release.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is indie games, smaller games, like quick experiences, that kind of stuff. Like,
Right.
it's like, okay, well, I guess this year was my indie year, apparently.
That's right. Year of the indie.
Because they literally took over my entire list. Like,
Yep.
and minor spoiler alert, my 3 AAA games that I have on my top 10 are the bottom 3. Like,
okay. Spicy.
like everything else, like, just kind of took over, and it was just like, cool, this is incredible, that's great, and these are all like relatively shorter experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are games that I missed, obviously, which is sad, but also at the same time, for me, that's a time issue. It's a time and finances. Like, there's a lot going on in my life right now. Finances wise has been tight for this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, again, minor spoilers, I didn't play Elden Ring. I didn't play Elden Ring because I didn't buy it, because I know I wouldn't have 160 hours to sink into that thing.
Right.
And Elden Ring is a Souls game, so it's one of those games where, no, you have to focus on this, otherwise you will forget how to play it, and then you're screwed.
Right.
And you have to just be completely focused on it, because if you try to rush it, you're just banging your head up against a wall.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I bounced off a lot this year where it's like, that's cool, I'm really excited about that. Nope, too much mind space. That's great, too much mind space,
Right.
It's one of those things where, like, my time has shrunk down this year. Hopefully it will improve next year. We will see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had fun with what I played. Like, you guys know me, I genuinely try and put a positive spin on anything. Even garbage games, I will put a positive spin on it, where it's like, if you got 2 hours and you want a stupid game to play, this is fine, I guess.
Right.
Maybe don't play the racist game I played earlier this year, but, other than that, you're absolutely fine.
Yeah. Nimp, how was your 2022 in gaming?
Man, it was busy.
I think that's the theme for this year, is like, man, the schedule.
Like I said when we were watching the Keighley Game Awards, there's just a lot of good games out this year. Like, a lot of good, heavy competition where you could easily see one game win over another game and have a valid argument for either one of them. There's a lot of things that caught my attention. Hey, JRPGs are steadily becoming a thing in the West.
Yeah.
We are seeing games that have never released in the West coming out now. So that's adding to additional game time that I have to start figuring out now, because next year is going to be a hot banger for more JRPGs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just need more time, man. The games that I did get through, though, all of them are pretty lengthy for them. I think there's probably, looking at my list, there's like maybe 2 or 3 that were sub 30 hours.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Everything else is like 50, 60, 70 or more.
Right.
So, which I think I'm getting to that old man point, like Moon was just saying, where it's like, oh, it's a 7-hour game. All right, yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah, exactly.
But every once in a while, they put something out there where it's like, oh yeah, this is like 80 hours plus, and it's like, I can get behind that. I don't know how, but
sink your teeth into me, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this just the list ever groweth of things that I can't get to.
Yeah, I have a list called 2022 games that I don't have time for but look cool, so I can't forget about. Like that's I have one for every year. It's usually about 10 games. Because I was in the same position this year, where I had a lot more and a lot less time than kind of expected, and I think, it's sort of in the same spot as Moon is. I usually play a lot more games to completion, and I played a lot of stuff this year, but I think a lot of stuff I fizzled out on pretty early. I think I had a hard time this year, not with stuff keeping my attention, because a lot of stuff I didn't finish was good, but a lot of stuff where I just kind of like faded away from it. I kind of wandered away from what I was playing a lot this year for some reason or another. And as a result of that, I had a really hard time making this list this year. I put it off until the last minute. I kind of threw something at the wall, and I was like, I'll move a couple things here and there, but that looks pretty good, I think. But I'll get into that thing where I look at it, after we're done recording. I was like, that should be higher. Grumble. But this year was really great. I think it's one of the few years where everything in my top 10 is a straight banger. There's some years where it's like, it was fine, it's 10 because I have to have 10. But not this year. This year was a really, really great year. But let's not talk about that this year. Let's talk about previous years. Let's talk about our best old games. This is something that didn't come out this year that we really loved, that we played. If some could have come out in 1995, for all we really care. But we loved it this year all the same. Moon, what's your best old game for this year?
Well, let me tell you all about the soundtrack to Command & Conquer Red Alert, arguably one of the greatest soundtracks ever made. And now that music is in everybody's heads who played that game because it's such a banger.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, my best game, or my best old game, is one of three. And two, because it's ironic because two of them I'm pretty sure I have already given this award to, and that is Dead by Daylight.
Okay.
Shocker, I know. Because continues to be incredible. Dying Light, which this year was the year of me and Nimp doing Dying Light together, which was hilarious as well. And completely straight out of left field, because we haven't even talked about it on the real show yet, Dragon Ball Fighter Z.
Yes.
Might be one of my... I hate fighting games, folks. I despise fighting games with a passion.
But Arc System Works makes a pretty good one.
Word, this game is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, it has the father-son Kamehameha. Like, it's my favorite moment from Dragon Ball Z. Like, in reality, it's just great. It's fantastic. I adore it. The game, for those of you who are not anime fans, specifically Dragon Ball fans, you might not realize that we waited, like, in my case, almost 40 years for a good Dragon Ball game.
There have been a couple that have been close, but nothing like this.
Shonen Jump Superstars on the DS was the closest thing, and that was a Smash Brothers game that had everybody in it, so that was just like a dream. But this game is so good. Like, it is, like, it's a 3-person tag team beat 'em up fighting game that I'm not a fan of the genre, but I can't stop playing it because I'm doing the story mode right now, which is fully voice acted and a completely unique story. It's not a rehash of the Dragon Ball story. It's a new story. And everybody's there, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm just playing this game for a while because I've got to unlock, like, Android 21 and Bulma and everybody else to be in my fighting team.
Yep.
So, sure, why not? Let's just get into, speaking of not enough time to play games, let's get into an 80 to 100 hour completion.
Why not?
Yeah. But I did look. There are no win 5,000 competitive matches on it.
Thank God.
It's just play matches, and it's like 50 is the top, which
Great.
I'm fine with.
2 thumbs up.
Like, so I'm good with that because I will happily play this and just spam Kamehamehas every which way. It's so good, guys. Like, it looks incredible. I know we talked about it like with trailers and stuff, but wow.
It looks so good.
And it is a light, medium, heavy, not a here's 3 punch buttons, here's 3 kick buttons kind of garbage, which is my favorite kind of game too.
Right.
So, okay. I'm down for it. Dragon Ball Fighter Z might be one of the best looking games of all time. That is my old game of the year.
All right, Nimp, what is your best old game for 2022?
So yeah, mine were also split into threes because, playing Spiritfarer again with my daughter and realizing how fun that game can be. We are totally lost, by the way, and I have to look up a guide because I have no clue what we're supposed to be doing. No Man's Sky is just like an evergreen in this
Yep.
category. Also played a ton with my kids, and the stuff that they just keep adding is fantastic. But my oldest game of the year is God of War 2018 because not only did I replay it to get prepped for Ragnarok, I also went through and platinumed that game, which it's not the most difficult platinum, but it's definitely not the easiest platinum either. So,
Right.
but just going back through there and getting the refresher, because I remembered all the key points in it, but like all the small minute details with like, you know, having Mimir talking back and forth between Atreus and Kratos again, and then you're following into like the flashbacks with like the old gods from the original God of Wars, and you know, you're getting that stuff, and it's like, oh man, this is just tugging just right for me. So
Yeah.
really love that game, really love that series, and I will say that is like one of those series that has come a really long way from having stupid little fun teenage sex mini games in it to
Right.
having a real story where it's like, man, this is really going in some directions.
Yeah. My best old game for this year, I had a hard time figuring out which one this was going to be until I went back and looked through our Game Club games for this year, and it had to be Life is Strange: True Colors, which came out.
That was close.
Yeah.
That was very close for me.
Came out last year, and I missed it then until we played it on Game Club this year, and it's another one of those that shouldn't have been good. Like the idea on paper of like, yeah, you sense people's emotions, and it's not made by the original team, and you know, it's made by the other team who made another Life is Strange game that was pretty good but not really outstanding, but they nailed it. Just from front to back, the whole thing is really great. Them not releasing it episodically actually worked out pretty well this time. I think playing it episodically would probably still result in a pretty great experience. But the whole game was great. Voice acting was great. The upgrades they did on kind of the facial animation really went a long way to making this even stronger. And the LARPing chapter is easily a high point in this entire series. It's this game is really something special, and just it's not super long and it's not super complicated, but when they get a Life is Strange game to kind of nail it, it goes all the way. I think True Colors is really great, and I hope that Deck 9 continues to be able to make Life is Strange games, because they figured it out, and I hope they get to do more. All right, next one here is 2022's Alpha Protocol. So like I said earlier, it's kind of a B game, a diamond in the rough, you know, not a AAA sort of thing. It's a thing that's got some problems maybe, but something we really loved. And it's also not a game that had to release this year, but sometimes it is, and that's okay. Moon, what was your Alpha Protocol of 2022?
I don't have one.
Yeah, it's a tough year for this one.
The closest thing I had for it was Hardspray Shipbreakers, and that's not even like, it's got a couple of bugs here and there, but it's still super polished and super incredible and amazing, and controls fine and plays well and looks beautiful. So it's like, well, I don't feel like it's broken enough to give it the Alpha Protocol award. And I've only encountered 2 bugs with a different game that's on my top 10 that I might have given it to, but nothing felt that way for me this year. Like,
Sure.
It's not besmirch. I don't want to besmirch the name of Alpha Protocol and say that, you know, it's better than than you think it is, because it is.
Right.
But it didn't feel like anything was that broken, charming kind of way this year.
It's a prestigious award. Like, you don't just give it to something that's, you know, it's okay.
I mean, everything that I played was unique enough. I mean, the other one was XL1, but that's not broken. That is just a specific type of game that spoke to me.
Right.
Saints Row is not broken in a good way, so that can't get the Alpha Protocol award.
Right.
Well, so I don't know.
And that's okay.
Yeah. I didn't play any any bangers of a B game this year. I don't
Right.
think. Just bangers.
That's right. That's right. Nimp, what is your Alpha Protocol for 2022?
I have Dying Light 2 Stay Human.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hear me out on this. This is technically
Mhm.
supposed to be a double/triple-A game.
Right.
However, it is broken in bad ways, but it's also been broken in really funny ways that I believe upholds the spirit of this category.
That's true.
Such as both of us staring at a black screen during the middle of a cutscene, and then eventually one of us says, "Are you watching a cutscene right now? I think there's supposed to be a cutscene playing right now."
That's an Alpha Protocol.
Yes. And just some of the other, we've had like off and on, we've just had some weird, buggy, glitchy stuff where it was like, well, that was different, but it wasn't anything besides getting kicked out of the game and not being able to reconnect. It hasn't been anything past that where it's like, okay, no, this is really screwing our progress. It's always just been something weird where it's like, that guy just jumped like 3 buildings that way and he shouldn't have been able to do that.
Right. Oh, man. My Alpha Protocol for this year is actually, it came out in 2020 and we played it for Game Club this year, is Umurangi Generation. It's a game I like a whole lot, sort of thematically and stylistically, musically, of course, but it plays really poorly. It controls very badly, and it doesn't need to control well necessarily, but there's some instances, especially when you get started with this game, where it's like, I need to get to this top of this scaffolding to take a picture, and not sure I can do that with the controls. But you do, and you take some really cool stuff, and you get through the game, and you find this kind of anti-authoritarian, end-of-the-world, giant mech, jellyfish fighting storyline that you experience through the lens of your camera. And it's one of the kind of coolest singular stories I've played in a game that I think is well suited for the medium. But boy, playing it is kind of rough. So I feel like that's also the spirit of an Alpha Protocol, where it's like, if you have to recommend it to someone, like, this is an incredible experience, I have to tell you a couple things first, though. You know, that's an Alpha Protocol. So
yeah, if you're willing to deal with the crap it's giving you,
right,
because there's something still good about it.
Yeah, I feel like that's very much the spirit. All right, let's talk about our honorable mentions. These are the ones that kind of didn't make it to the top 10 list here for one reason or another. So, Moon, why don't you hit us with your whole list here of your honorable mentions?
I got 3.
Okay.
One of which I got a sneaking suspicion is in your top 10.
Probably.
Who would have thunk it? One might be in Nib's top 10, to be honest, depending on if you played it this year or not. Right. But it's 2 Point Campus. I just haven't played enough of it to feel comfortable throwing it in the top 10.
Sure.
It always happens to me with these kind of games. I would play it hardcore for like a month and then stop, and then go back to it years later after it's left Game Pass, and then I have to pay for it and then complete it at that point.
Right.
Which is fine. But it is a perfectly fine game. It's unique and fresh enough because it's a different take from the 2 Point Hospital thing. Like it's similar but different enough. Like Night School is a quality pun that I don't know.
Yeah. It's really good.
It's just a really solid thing. Like they've got a whole bunch of them in there. They're all relatively fun. So like 2 Point Campus. Sorry, I barely played G. Fun, stupid, cute, but just not good enough to make my top 10 is Paparazzi.
Oh yeah.
Which is you are a sentient camera taking photos of dogs.
Yep.
Yep.
And somehow when you take a selfie, you get yourself in the shot too. So like, do you remove your eyeballs and turn them around? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's been a pretty solid like go-to for Blue Sky game where I don't have to think about it too much. I go in. It tells me to take a picture of Tony Bach, so I take a picture of Tony Bach.
Yeah.
You forgot about Tony Bach, didn't you,
I forgot
Boston?
about Tony Park. It's so good.
I take a picture of him. I take a picture of the human robots that they have in the game. I find, the dog hiding in the tree outfit, which is always cute and hilarious. And then I go to a different stage and I do it again. And it was a fun ride. It was, hey, guess what? Game Pass. Value for money, folks.
Right.
Yeah.
It was fun. I had a good time with it, and I'm done with it, and that's great. My final honorable mention, again, because I didn't play enough of it, is Hard Space Shipbreaker. I'm at like chapter 6 of 13, so I don't feel like I'm invested enough to actually, talk about it that heartily for my top 10. I know you guys wouldn't care, but some of those audience members might be like, well, you didn't beat the game, so therefore you can't talk about it.
Right.
You didn't unlock the ultimate holographic sticker for your gun.
That's right. That's right.
And for that, I point you to Boston and Musin playing that game on the Switch that just didn't work.
Oh, the Sexy Brutal.
That's the one.
Yep. Hey, this game's pretty great. Whoops, it doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. Hard Space Shipbreaker, it I don't know how it looks as good as it looks, but it does. And I really enjoyed the reverse puzzle aspect of it, where it's like, oh, hey, here is a complete puzzle. Now take it apart. That was really intriguing to me, especially when, taking it apart process involves potentially blowing your face off with explosive
fuel
decompression.
Of some sort. Yeah.
But yeah, that's my 3 honorable mentions.
Nimp, what missed your list this year?
All right, I've got like 6. My first one is Tunic. And this easily could have gone in my number 10 spot, and I've flipped them back and forth between. My biggest, I guess, issue with it was just that the combat just felt a little off.
Oh, sure.
But outside of that, like the puzzles, the manual, the art style, like everything else was great. It was just, I go back and forth on the combat being a huge sticking point for me for that game. But man, did I absolutely love playing that game. And if they ever release a physical edition with that manual, I'm going to buy it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. The next game I played was Aiden Chronicles Rising.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it was only meant to be, I think it was like supposed to be like a $15 just like one-off to kind of tide everyone over until the actual game comes out next year. It was actually really fun. And they made it a lot better with their traveling system, so that way you weren't constantly running back and forth. It was basically just a quest game where you completed the quest. Okay, just fast travel back to this point, talk to the person, done. Grab your next quest, fast travel to where you need to go, complete it, go back, done. Right. So just the time saving in that game, and it was just fun just upgrading everybody's stuff and just pulling off stupid combos. My next one was Stray.
Oh yeah.
This was another one that I enjoyed the lore, but sometimes just figuring out what you had to do was sometimes just a pain. And I hated the fact that you had to run away. You didn't really. It kept putting you in combat scenarios when you had no way to defend yourself. You just had to run away. Oh, right. And I always hate when games do that. That and invincible enemies that you have to run away from because, you're not ready for them yet. No, that's crap. But outside of that, though, it was fun playing as a cat. And it was awesome that they did the physics in such a way that you could... the dumbest thing that I always point out. It's like, oh, hey, look, those bars in that door, because you're a cat, you can walk between the bars. Right. Even though we've been used to years that even though you're that size, no, that whole thing's a hitbox and you're not getting in between those bars. So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge.
There you go.
There's one I forgot about.
Yeah. My son and I loved this game. We had a lot of fun playing the arcade. It had weird difficulty spikes every once in a while, though.
Yes. Goodness.
Yeah. But all in all, though, it was fun. He was running around as Leo. I was running around as Master Splinter, and we were just having a great time at it. Marvel Snap.
Yep.
I still like playing this game, but compared to everything else I have on the list, I couldn't really justify putting it on my list. It's still a good game to play. The fact that it's short and you're doing like just quick one-offs, I mean, you could be waiting in the line for pizza and be able to get through like 2-3 matches probably before you even get to the cash register. And my final one is Trek Dioma.
Oh, right.
Nothing really against it. It just felt really short.
Right.
And I know we were talking about, hey, short games are great, but it just felt like that they kind of just compacted the whole story into like 5 hours, and it could have used like 6 or 7 hours just to flesh it out just a little bit more. But
right.
outside of that, I mean, I had fun with it. So that's my list.
My honorable mentions, I have 7, but most of them are pretty quick here. I just went through alphabetical order. Destiny 2, The Witch Queen. I mean, I feel like I can't put this on my top 10 list, even though it was sort of transformative for the Destiny 2 experience. But at the end of the day, it's kind of still Destiny 2 a bit better. It's a game I've been playing for, 5 years at this point. You
got some investment in it, so...
Yeah, so, I didn't feel like it could go on my top 10, but it was very good.
You're 10.5.
There you go. Disney Dreamlight Valley. I think it's a really cool take on not so much the farming simulator, because that's sort of part of it, but the kind of social aspect that things like Stardew Valley have really tried to kind of incorporate. And it's a really cool take. It's not done. It's still in early access and often feels like it. There's a lot of patches that are coming in really hot. There's a bunch of trophies you just can't get yet because they're like, build 30 houses for your friends. It's like, yeah, cool. There's like 10 of them right now.
Yep.
Which isn't really a knock against the game. It is a solid experience right now, but I kind of didn't feel like I played enough of it in the state that it's in to be on my top 10 this year. Next one is Not Words. It actually came out this year. I played that really hardcore for a couple of months and fell off immediately. And not really because of the game, but I think I was imposing too many pressures on myself to play to play all 3 puzzles every day, and I just burnt myself out hardcore on that. I should have treated it more like I'm treating Marvel Snap, where it's like, yeah, if you play, cool. If you don't, cool, no big deal, whatever. One I regrettably didn't finish enough to put on my top 10, which is probably an indication of how different our top 10s are going to be. Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. I really like a lot of that, and I played a whole bunch of it, and it kind of slipped off the end of my list. I kind of wanted to play more of it, and I played a lot of it, and I didn't play enough, and it's in that kind of no man's land between honorable mentions and top 10, where it's like, that's my number 11, my number 10.5, that sort of thing. It came out of early access this year, Rogue Legacy 2. Moon and I played that for Wii Rogue Like It. Liked it a whole lot, and I can't justify putting it on my top 10 list this year, though it was another one that was kind of slipping in the number 10 slot. The game's really great, and a huge improvement on the first one, and has just so much stuff in it. God. And it's a really great game, but just kind of couldn't make the list. Shovel Knight Dig, that came out this year and is really good. I feel like I didn't spend enough time with it to kind of fit it in the list, but I had a blast with it. Really hope it is on more things this upcoming year, because it will do really well on other consoles. It's just not there yet. And lastly, Shredder's Revenge. Like Nimp was saying, I liked it a lot this year. My wife and I played it co-op a whole bunch. Just kind of couldn't fit it in the top 10 this year, but any other year it would be kind of at the bottom of the list of like, yeah, it's a really great looking, great playing,
brought
super
back
fun
a genre.
Yeah,
Well,
like they did that genre right.
Yeah. I do have one more to add.
Oh, sure.
That I completely forgot to write, and I think you guys will agree with this as an honorable mention. Wordle.
Yeah. Wordle came and went pretty hard this year. And I liked Wordle a lot. Shout out to Wordle.
Framed for me.
Yeah, Framed is another great one. Yeah. All right, before we get into our top 10, let's talk about you, the community's game of the year. Thank you very much, everybody, for voting. With one of the biggest turnouts we've had for a long time for the voting this year. Third place, it's a tie between Vampire Survivors and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Both, very similar vampire games. So that's our number tie for number 3.
Man, could you imagine if they put Kirby in that game? He would fit.
Yeah, he'd be great. Yeah, just spitting out skeletons all day. Second place, also a tie between Elden Ring and Tunic, which is another very interesting mashup here. But number 1, by and far, like a huge lead over all the other ones, shockingly, Horizon Forbidden West as the community's game of the year, which I was pretty surprised about. But I think that's I think it's cool that our community has a different take on I think what the rest of us will probably have here. So thank you again for the best community on the internet, being the best for putting in your stuff for not only this episode for Community Game of the Year, but for the next episode for predictions. We appreciate you helping both of these episodes be great, and as we said, being the best community on the internet. Thank you.
Do we think that list suffered from the God of War Ragnarok late release?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, where it's like, I can finally get to this game. Hey, it's really good.
Hey, it's Christmas.
Yeah. Whoops. Yeah. All right. Time for the big category here. Let's crack our knuckles and get into it. Our top 10, starting off as always at number 10. Moon, why don't you start us off with your number 10?
1 second, I'm just reorganizing my list again.
That's right. Let me scoot some stuff.
I've done it
here.
Twice since we've been talking.
Yeah, I've been resisting. I've been trying not to.
My number 10 is Saints Row. It is a middle of the road game that I had a fair amount of fun playing. If I'm completely honest, like it's not Saints Row 3, it's not Saints Row 4, but I don't even know if Saints Row 3 and 4 are still Saints Row 3 and 4. Like 10 years after their release. I will hopefully be digging into that further later because I have remasters to play. But it was fine. Like I don't know if I actually talked about it on the show, but they actually released a huge patch like about a month ago that fixed like 20 issues I had with the game, which was like, I've only got one garage. Like, no, now you've got one all over the map. Like, there's like 6 garages now. There's like one in each province. And the cash app seems to go a lot quicker. The money end is a lot faster, so therefore you can afford the upgrades for the weapons and stuff like that. I'm essentially done with the game now. I've just got mop up and clean up to do. But more importantly, I have co-op to do.
Hey. Wink.
Which means it's time for the return of the insanity. Like, for example, by the way, they added a robot GPS now. So, long story short, in the game, when you hold Y, you hop onto the roof of the car, and then from there, you can hit A and activate your wingsuit and just go flying off the car in your wingsuit. Problem is, the car goes in a straight line, so if you happen to be coming to a cliff...
Goodbye.
The car drives off the cliff. If you're not going fast enough, you don't get the wingsuit. You go off the cliff with the car. Now, when you're on top of the car just drives itself to the destination pointed on the GPS.
Smart. That's a good idea.
Which I think was in Saints Row 3 or 4. And now it's in this again. So there's like 10 different things which are great, but I want to be on top of a car while somebody else is driving it, and then I go wingsuiting off into a billboard sign because my timing is terrible or something like that.
Right.
Like,
bounce off the side of a building.
Right.
I want a Deadpool 2 moment where the X-Force jumps out the plane and then things go south.
High winds.
It is a fine game. It's not top of the pile. It's not bottom of the pile. It is a very middle of the road, and I'm fine with that. The other games I played this year, I don't like some of them outright. Go check out the Game Club episodes we did this year for more in-depth analysis on that.
Right.
But yeah, number 10, Saints Row.
All right, Nimp, what is your number 10?
My number 10 is Citizen Sleeper. I really enjoyed this type of game where it basically just felt like a tabletop game. And I got so engrossed with it in the beginning that I didn't realize that I was self-imposing a time limit of I need to hurry up and get stuff done before things go sideways. And I think I was a good couple hours into it when I actually realized, oh, hey, I can just sit here and nothing's going to happen until I tell the game to do something. But it's just, it grabbed me in such a way where it just felt like, hey, there's got to be like a timer or something ticking in the background that I'm aware of. And there's not. It's just, that's just how the story's rolling. And it stops when you stop, and it goes fast when you decide to click on your next mission. I enjoyed just like in the beginning how you have to buy, I forget what it's called now, but you basically have to buy this recovery unit to help keep yourself fresh, basically, so that you stop. You're not even decomposing, but you're breaking down because of the cybernetics in you and all that crap. And then you get to a point where, oh, hey, this becomes affordable. I'm not having to choose between this and eating or something else. And then they take it away from you. And then you're just like, OS, now what? So I really liked the direction that they went with it. I have not played the DLC because they came out with, 2 DLCs for it?
Yep. Yeah, so far.
I haven't played the 2 DLCs for it yet, but I did enjoy my story that I had that came to my logical ending for it. And just how, they've got 5 different endings?
It's 5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, because I know I did a couple other ones outside of my main one that I considered canon for myself. And even completing those is like, no, I could see my story ending this way too. Like nothing seemed completely out of the blue like you get with some games where it's like, pick the blue, red, or green choice, and
right.
But yeah, Citizen Sleeper, my number 10.
My number 10 is 2 Point Campus. I normally this would be a lot higher because I like the style of game, but this year was just way too packed full of incredible games. But I really appreciate that 2 Point Campus, like Moon talked about, it really does feel fresh because they could have just made 2 Point Hospital 2, and it'd be like you're running a whole 10 new hospitals, and be like, okay, yeah, great, I'll get back in and run more hospitals. But they didn't. They took care. You're running campuses, and I feel like they took a chance on this one, unlike the first one where you're running. Each campus is significantly different from each other. Here's the magic one. Here's the one all about cooking. Here's the spy school. Here's the sports school. It's not just here's a hospital and it's getting more difficult as time goes on. I think that really helped. And baking in the quality of life improvements they made over the first one, the biggest improvement was being able to set a blueprint for a room and having that carry over from campus to campus. So this administration room is always going to be the same, and I made it perfect, and I'm just going to plop that down multiple times and have that take care of everywhere instead of having to build it and put all this stuff in and put all the pieces in. It's a pretty huge improvement, and 2 Point Campus is it's great. It's one of the games I platinumed this year because I loved everything about it, and it was really great. And 2 Point Campus is my number 10. Moon, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is Rainbow Six Extraction.
Oh, yeah.
Which also came out this year, shockingly enough.
Right.
I'm not expecting scribbled notes on this one. I have always been a fan of Rainbow Six. both Vegas, the OGs, the remakes, every iteration has been intriguing to me in one way or another. Rainbow Six Siege is one of the best competitive PvP games out there, period. But it's a competitive PvP game.
Right.
And I don't play with that no more.
Mm.
So when Extraction was announced, and as incredibly dumb and rah-rah America hell yeah as the cutscenes are, it's me and my friends versus a black sludge monsters. So I am perfectly happy with going in and shooting AI monsters. And when you turn the difficulty up, getting genuinely freaked out by the severity and the seriousness of how bad that can get.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one thing to like see like a human looking, little sludge monster come walking around a corner. It's a completely different thing when what looks like Geodude comes stomping around the corner and like smashes you in the face. Like it was and still is a genuinely fun, dumb, quick little, like I think it's even a $40 game where like you just go in, you do a bunch of maps, do a bunch of like it's a roguelike. Except it's Rainbow Six Siege. So
Mm-hmm.
I played the hell out of the roguelike thing on the Division. Why wouldn't I play the roguelike thing in Rainbow Six?
Right.
I think we have a new game to put on the list, Boston.
Hey, there you go. I like it.
But yes, my number 9 is Rainbow Six Extraction. It is so dumb, stupid, and fun.
All right, Nimp, what is your number 9?
My dumb, stupid, fun number 9 is Soul Hackers 2.
Ah, yes.
They've patched a couple things and fixed some very minor issues. Specifically being able to move the camera so that your character wasn't just to the left of the screen for some weird reason and hogging up a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it was just a fun. I don't think it was a full release title or a full price game. I think it was like a 50 or 60. But either way,
I think so. Yeah.
It was just fun running around. The story was all right. I mean, it was for the time I had nothing else to play, so it was just clicking with me. You show up in a dungeon, you clear it. You got the fog of war in the dungeon that you're trying to map out, so you just running around, finding crap, killing it, getting items, upgrading your stuff, and you just move on to the next story beat.
Making friends with demons,
Yeah, had a lot of fun. And I also still think it's really cool that her tattoos on her leg turn into the weapons that she uses. It is just dumb little things like that where I'm like, no, I can get behind it. And the hair coloring and the fact that their hair and their clothes vibe with like that neon light.
Yeah.
Oh man, the game's got some style to it. So yeah, Soul Hackers 2.
My number 9 is Immortality. I like this game whole lot. Yeah.
I'm surprised this is not higher up your list, if I'm completely honest.
So, I like Immortality a whole lot. And it would be a lot higher on my list if I could see all of it. But the fundamental problem with Immortality's gameplay is we talked about this a lot in the game club. I clicked with this game a lot, but when you get sort of to the true ending of the game, and then you're kind of like, well, I want to fill in the rest of the clips, and I want to put together more of the movies, and I want to see more of the stuff. The lack of real guidance and lack of real instruction on how to kind of fill the gaps of the clips of the 3 movies, I think is a real missed opportunity for this game. And left me not finishing all of it because I didn't know how to, and I didn't know what was missing, and as much as I really wanted to see every little like crumb of footage in this game, I couldn't, because I didn't know how to, and I didn't know where to go. All that aside, an incredibly ambitious game, certainly not like anything I have played before, went in absolutely wild directions that I didn't even think to expect. every time my controller vibrated, I was like, oh boy, here we go. All right. And just it does an incredibly unsettling thing when you kind of get into a rhythm with that game, and then kind of peels back that first layer of like, nope, let's show you what this thing is really about. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? And it's a game that will kind of stick with me for a very, very long time. I just kind of wish the playing part of it was more conducive to kind of more discovery. But I really loved it. It's a really cool thing, and I'm very excited for whatever crazy thing that team does next, because I don't know where you go from here, but I'm very, very excited to see where they're going to go. My number 9 is Immortality. Moon, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
Mm-hmm.
I have spoken about it for the better part of a year because it took me the better part of a year to beat this game. It's everything you want in the Lego Star Wars games, except better. And way too much content.
Mm-hmm.
You have kids, you want to buy them one game and watch them bang their head against it for the better part of a year? Knock yourself out. Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga is right there for you.
And if they're my kid.
That's
Yeah.
true. And I didn't even do everything in the game. That's the scary thing. I
Mm-hmm.
got all of the achievements, but for once, it didn't need to do everything to get all of the achievements. It's the Lego games as a whole. This might be my Lego bias coming in here, specifically the video game bias. As a whole, they have got some of the best physical comedy that has ever existed in anything, I would say. Jar Jar getting swung around on a fan in the kitchen in this instance because his tongue is stuck to it is quality. But it's the mixture of the true to the story depictions using Lego characters, but doing it in a PG way. So you don't see Anakin and the Younglings, for example. You don't see that scene, obviously, for good reason. But you see a whole bunch of like other stuff, like Tweet. I just made it a little bit more kid friendly. I said, cool, that's really good. Like young kids would adore this kind of series. Mm-hmm. And then they throw in things like, I have a very particular set of skills when you pick Qui-Gon Jinn, which only the grown-ups are going to understand.
Right.
And something I didn't notice until right near the end of the game was the having two characters with a history, and they will have a conversation about their history while you're playing the game. Mm-hmm. It's like it's the biggest, probably the best Lego game that they've ever released. It plays fantastically. There's some little things here and there that get to me. But generally, it's everything you ever loved about the Lego games, except it's better and it looks beautiful, and it's in 8K, 4K, whatever the hell it is. The Lego games are great. Every time one of them gets released, I will buy it usually, and then every time it's almost always in my top 10 because they're fantastic.
Yep.
My number 8, Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
Nimp, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is one of this year's weirdest named franchises, and that is Triangle Strategy. So, for those of you who don't know, this is a tactical RPG game that was released on the Switch, a la Fire Emblem, Advanced Wars, it just falls in the whole thing. Final Fantasy Tactics, Ogre, it just falls right in there with that style. The art style is reminiscent of those they were trying to do with the 16-bit, I think it was, that they were going for.
Mm-hmm. They're like HD, 2D, whatever they call that engine.
Yeah. Which looks good. It's the same as Octopath Traveler for the graphics wise. So the water is extra sparkly for some reason.
That's right.
But gameplay wise, it's not really bringing anything new. You upgrade your units, you get more items, and eventually you can upgrade them from like, a freelancer to a knight to, a lord's knight or whatever. And it just doesn't do anything new. I mean, it's not horrible. I still really enjoyed playing it, and I think that's part of the thing is that it's fun to play, and if you haven't played a whole lot of them, you're like, okay, this is good, this is fun. But it's like even down to like the escort missions where it's like you have an NPC unit on the other side of the map that you do not control, and they are surrounded by enemy NPCs, and you have to rush over there and save them. But they can still move however they want, and they're still picking the dumbest locations to move to while you are trying to save them. It's like they have a death wish, and it's something that I don't understand why they haven't fixed at this point. But
right.
But yeah, it's been fun. If you like Game of Thrones, I mean, it's right there. Right. Just no northern wall. So yes, Triangle Strategy. I highly recommend it if you're not bored or tired of the old reused strategy setup. But yep.
Right. My number 8 is Escape Academy. This is it's a testament on how good the list was this year that Escape Academy, a game I dearly love, is 8. Escape Academy is a type of puzzle game I really enjoy. There's just enough story to keep it going, but never enough where you're like, yada yada, all right, like, okay, cool. A lot of it's leaning into exactly how dumb it is. The villains are called the Anti-Escape League, I think they are. You're at a escape school, like an escape room academy, and each one of the puzzles is just complicated enough and just long enough to feel rewarding without you being like, oh my god, there's another room in here. Like sometimes there where it's like, all right, I finished there's another room, okay, no, and it's usually followed by like, oh no, I know how to do this one, okay, cool, like there's another room, but I got this one. It has some cool quote-unquote timed puzzles that were a lot of fun. There's a competition puzzle that I think is the standout puzzle in this one. That's an incredible reveal of the last puzzle in that one is still an incredible of just like, all right, we're doing oh boy, okay, that's a lot of, geez. Easily one of the biggest surprises of 2022 is Escape Academy, and I didn't even play a co-op. I played it solo, and I know that co-op we talked about it on Game Club. Moon played it co-op, and I know that's an incredibly cool experience. And Escape Academy, Moon is pointing up. But for me, it's one of those ones where it's like, I love you, Escape Academy, so much. And if I didn't love the games above you more, this would have been so high. It's just such a good year that you're sitting at number 8. But Escape Academy, I haven't even played the DLC that came out either, the like Escape from Anti-Escape Island or something. Like,
yes,
it does such a good job of leaning into its ridiculousness that I really, really love it. Highly recommended. Escape Academy is my number 8. Moon, what is your number 7?
Well, how about we all sing a little song about some sheepies,
and
then go make sacrifices to the ancient ones.
That's right.
Because my number 7 is Cult of the Lamb. It's a roguelike Animal Crossing like village management simulation that has permadeath for your villages, and except for one, wink. It's a mix of like 5 different genres that I adore, and they're not all of them individually are not the best of the field. Like the village management stuff, that's no Stardew Valley. The roguelike stuff, that's no Hades, but it does every one of them just well enough to where it was genuinely just a surprise and fun all the way around. And the developers immediately patched like the 5 bugs I was having so I could get my sweet Chivos.
Right.
So thank you, devs, for the quick patching for the bugs. It's charming. It's great art style. It's got pretty solid music. And from what I understand, the Twitch integration is insanely good too.
It's very
Where,
cool.
Like your people become your followers as well. So it's like,
Yep.
okay, great. Cult of the Lamb is... I was excited about it in a curious, excited kind of way. And when it came out, we were like, yeah, let's just do it. We like it. And it very quickly was like, okay, this is a genuinely great game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my number 7, Cult of the Lamb.
And Nimp, what is your number 7?
My number 7 is Star Ocean: The Divine Force.
Right.
This could have been higher if they didn't repeat the same story from basically 2 and 5
And 3 and 4.
Yeah. But outside of that portion of it's like the portion that I have issue with is the sickness portion, where it's like it seems like every Star Ocean game they've got, you know, the sickness that's spreading on this planet that's never been seen before, and one, you're not even supposed to be on this planet because, you know, the Prime Directive, and two, it seems like, oh, you know, you guys can't heal it, but, you know, with our, you know, futuristic magic, quote unquote, technology, we can solve your issue for you. And it's always the same loop. And I was like, just do something new. But
Right.
Outside of the story, though, the characters are okay, which is way better than the last game. The movement, the Duma system is the dumbest but funnest thing, where you just jump up in the air and launch yourself forward, and you eventually get a second version of it where you can do that twice. So you have these large open maps that you are just leaping across because of the Duma system, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to use it in combat was a cool thing. Trying to figure out the blindsiding with it, and being you can like temporarily fly inside a battle with it, which threw me off several times because then you get into enemies that can also fly. So then you're trying to figure things out that way as well. But overall, I enjoyed it. Welch is still in there. She is still a pain to deal with and to listen to sometimes.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Welch is generally who you have that does crafting for you. And there is a fun side story with her that I will not spoil, because that is like one of the few things in this series where that was like a whoa. But yeah, I went into this game not expecting a lot, and it meted and exceeded to a point those expectations. So that's why it's on my list now. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope they make another one, and I hope they choose a different story to go.
Right. My number 7 is also Cult of the Lamb. I agree with everything that Moon said. We really enjoyed it on We Rogue Like It. I think I was also kind of curiously excited about it, where they kept showing trailers about it, and it's like, I'm still not entirely sure what you're putting out, but it's kind of evil cute, and I kind of respect that. And it turns out, yeah, you're running like an evil Animal Crossing roguelike thing. On We Rogue Like It, and on this show, I sort of likened it a lot to Moonlighter, where I feel like it kind of nailed down its cycle really well. Like, by the time you're kind of done with all the Animal Crossing stuff, you're ready to go back in the dungeon. Once you're kind of done with that and you're ready to go, you fight a boss, you go back to the village, do all that stuff, and you have this really great loop where you're spending just enough time doing each one of those things, and by the time you're approaching being done with it, you're going to go to the other side of the game. And I think they handled that really, really well, and both sides of the game feed into each other really well. The upgrades are all great. The upgrade trees are super good. I feel like you're always unlocking new things, and the stuff you're unlocking in the village management stuff. makes a big impact on the dungeon crawling stuff. And like Moon said, both halves of the game are good. They are definitely not, it's not Stardew Valley over here where you're kind of, playing one of the best in the genre, and it's not, the best dungeon crawler you've ever played. But both of them are really well made and really fun and complement each other really well. And I think that's what puts it so high on my list here. And it's definitely an art style and a kind of content we haven't really seen before, where it's like you and your adorable flock are sacrificing people for the dark gods, and it's like, sure, okay, yeah, that's
and eating poop for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, you can make your followers eat poop, which was a very hilarious early quest line of like, hey man, do you think we can get this guy to eat poop if you ask him to? And you do, and the guy's like, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. We're gonna do it again. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I sort of don't blame you. But yeah, my number 7 is the very good Cult of the Lamb. Moon, number 6.
Number 6, in the long-awaited wait for a wrestling game, we got one. Rumbleverse is my number 6. Again.
Right.
Again, coming out this year to everybody's surprise, Rumbleverse.
Yep.
I'm not what's it called? A PUBG Battlegrounds
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not usually a fan of that type of game, but there's just something so cool about it being like the beat 'em up controls, where it's it's the triangle strategy of grapples, and everyone having their own dumb things, and all of the moves are legally distinct enough to where they are not specifically the diamond cutter, but it's definitely the diamond cutter. And everyone's finisher being like the tornado powerbomb from Zangief, which is just fantastic. Right. Like, I love that. That game has given me so many dumb, fun moments this year, like suplexing somebody off a roof, doing an elbow drop onto a car, onto a person, onto like back into the sky, and then onto the car again. Like,
let's not forget it takes place in a Grappital City.
And
so
like,
good.
Playing it in tag team mode with friend of the show Rob, and like him doing a super kick to me, accidentally catching them out of the air into the spinning pile driver. Like,
so good.
It's just. It's ridiculous. Like it was, the art style was great. It was fun in all of the right kind of ways. My only downside is I don't have time for games as a service, so I don't feel comfortable buying a season pass for a game that I'm probably gonna play 2 matches of a season. And it's like, yay!
I did it.
Like I don't have that time anymore. But it's still a real quality game that I genuinely enjoy playing. Rumbleverse is my number 6.
Nimp, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is a sleeper because I don't think I've heard anyone talk about it, and that is Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin.
Right. Let's add this to my games I missed.
That is a sleeper in the same way that like the sleeper has awoken from Dune is a sleeper. It's like, no, that's just insanity is what that is.
Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know, this is the Souls-like Final Fantasy game that came out where you play as Jack, who was obsessed with chaos.
Chaos?
This ties in with Final Fantasy, was it the first?
Yeah, Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And it ties in such a way that it kind of changes how I perceived the story of Final Fantasy 1 to the point that I kind of want this story to be the canon story of 1.
Right.
So how it starts out is that you have your characters. There's the prophecy of like the 4 warriors of light, and they should all have like the crystals of light: earth, wind, fire, water. I'll get there eventually. So when the game starts out, there's 3 of you that have crystals. Then you find a 4th person that has a crystal. And then a little time passes, and all of a sudden there's a fifth person that has a crystal.
Mm.
And now you have to figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because up until this point, the prophecy's been following flawlessly. So I'm not going to spoil this, the ending portion, but I will say the battle system has been fun. I would highly recommend if you do pick this up, just do it in story mode. Don't worry about difficulty until you've beaten the game, because that's when you have to start doing missions where your gear is higher than what the story wanted you to be at. And that's when you have to bump up your difficulty to start getting that higher end gear. And the story missions that you're doing through your first general playthrough, they don't really give you a whole lot to benefit you from really being at that high of a level. So, but man, this game has so many systems in it. I can't even keep them straight. I was unlocking things that I wasn't sure what they did until I beat the game. And then I was like, oh, that's what I start using this item for. And then you start unlocking difficulties within missions by using items to unlock those difficulties. And yeah, it turns into a whole thing. There have been 2 DLCs that have released. There's the Bahamut one, and I believe the Yojimbo one is the second one that just came out or is coming out soon. I have not beaten the Bahamut one or even started it, because to start it, the very first quest for that requires you to have an equipment level of 300 or more.
Oh, jeez.
And I think I'm at like 200 and something, and that was with grinding with a lot of random people.
Oh, wow.
So, but I've been really enjoying the grinding. The fact that you can choose every class, I think they have all the classes in there now, including the summoner class that I was complaining that they didn't have in there. That's in there now. But they've got if they don't have all of them, they have just about all of them in there. And it's fun that they are all unique enough to try out, and they fight differently, and they all require different weapons and armor and skill sets and stuff for you to use and try. And the whole blood crystal system, where you're basically doing your parry and then you just punch them hard enough that they turn into blood crystals and then they explode. I mean, it did it for me. And that opening movie, if you haven't seen the opening movie for Origins, watch it, because that is fantastic cinema right there. I think there's like maybe 5 words spoken in that entire opening movie, and the rest is just action, and it is great, and it is also gory, so do not watch it with kids. Okay. But so yeah, my number 6 is Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin.
All right, my number 6 is probably the spiciest one on this list. It's God of War Ragnarok. I wish this was higher. Again, it's been a really good year. God of War's biggest thing is that it can't get out of its own way story-wise. It looks incredible. I mean, I'm playing it at 4K, 120 frames on my TV, and it never dropped throughout the entirety of the game. And there's some parts of the game where there's a lot of stuff going on. The combat is still really solid. I feel like they took some really great steps beyond what the first one did. I feel like the skill trees are really, really good in this one. There's not a lot of filler in there. I was using more skills in this one than I think I did in the first one overall. The puzzles are really great. There's a bunch of pretty good head scratchers in there. The criticism of Sony's third-person character action games this year rightly is stop telling me the solution to puzzles. I haven't even looked around yet. That definitely applies here to Ragnarok. But I don't think it's a mortal sin like in another Sony first-party game from this year. It is a game that is heavily invested in its own story, and the story eventually gets there, but it takes a lot longer than I wanted it to get to the end. I think it pays off. I think it works, but I think there were too many parts of that game where I felt like I was just going through a slog. But in the end, I don't have any complaints about the story, and I have a lot of fun playing it, and I think that's why it was lower on my list here than I I think probably a lot of outlets and probably someone else who is on the show with me,
Yeah.
then I wanted to keep playing it more than I wanted to watch it. And I think that's kind of a good spot you want to be in as a studio and as a game developer, is, man, when that game really clicked, when you're going through and you're having a lot of fights and things are moving along, that game felt real good. And now that I'm in the post game where they kind of just, everything's done, the game feels real good. But there were some parts where I was just like, yes, cool. Yep, let's, all right, yep, I get it.
Move it along.
Yeah,
Yep.
let's keep motoring here. I got to throw an axe at some undead something or whatever. It doesn't matter. So this was one of the hardest ones to put on my list this year because it is legitimately a great game, and I really love. We were talking earlier about God of War 2018. That is a really great game. God of War Ragnarok, I think, is better in a lot of regards, but kind of needed to get out of its own way to really make it shine. And that's why it's at number 6 on my list. All right, top 5 here. We're getting there, halfway done.
Representing now.
That's right, world exclusive. Moon, what is your number 5?
So a caveat here. This is the section of my list that has rotated the most. Like,
Okay.
the top 5 this year was as close as it can possibly get for me.
Mhm.
Top 3 specifically are like a hair's breadth apart.
Ditto. Yep.
I'm still
so
thinking
mine,
of rotating some things right now.
That's right.
I'm looking at it. And
Yep.
looking at it, and I'm thinking about it. My number 5 is Escape Academy. As Boston said, like, it's a game that, like, what day of the devs we saw it, and we're like, okay,
Yep.
that looks pretty cool. And then literally didn't think about it a whole lot, and I was like, oh, and it's coming to Game Pass day and date. Perfect. Let's give this a shot. And then I sat down and played it, and I think I did it in 2 sittings, and it was so much fun. Like Boston said, I played the whole thing in co-op, and like having that second screen and the ability to see what the other person's looking at, so you can quick reference puzzle solutions between the two of you, even if you're using voice chat or something. Like, that game has no right to be as good as it is.
Right.
But it sure is great. It's I don't even know. It's charming. It's fun. It's charmingly dumb in all of the best ways. I mean, like Buster said, the anti-escape brigade or whatever the hell they're called. Like, and then you got the stupid robot that takes over. Like, I mean, come on. Like, the only negative is the boat mission is the biggest negative, I would say.
It's not good. Yeah.
But the rest of it is great, and it's relatively a blue sky game. Like, it's genuinely fun just putting all these like puzzles together, and the hint system in that game is magnificent as well.
I forgot about that. It's very good.
Where it will literally it will give you a point in the right direction, and then it'll give you a point in the right direction and a little hint, and then it'll just be like, here is the answer. Like, it's a really solid hint system all throughout, and I love the achievements, and I love like the duel to the death, like that the 2 students do. You and the other student to have like the duel to the death thing. Because I was playing in co-op, they referenced it was going to be 2v1, which was fantastic as well.
That's great.
But yeah, Escape Academy is great. If it's still on Game Pass, which I think it is, you should definitely give it a shot if you haven't.
Yes.
And definitely play co-op if you can, because it's just so good. Yeah, my number 5, Escape Academy.
Nimp, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero.
Dude, all of your games are like you got a boggle set of tiles, tossed them into a boggle thing, and then just shook the container, and
That's
then
a great part about JRPGs.
Wait until 2023.
I know.
So, I think this hits right for me because I had already played all the Sky games and all the Steel games. And I already knew some of the events going in, but not all of them because this was never released in the West prior to this. I don't know if it would hit the same if this was like your first entry into the Legend of Hero games. I'm not saying it's not a good starting point, but I just don't know if it would hit the same for everyone else, because I was already aware of the SSS. I was already aware of the main faction and characters from Crossbells. And in fact, in the last series in Cold Steel, Crossbells has already been basically invaded by the empire that you're a part of, the Urbarian Empire, and they're already a part of everything that's happened. And it was what continuing to happen. So it's weird. The whole series is just weird. But I mean, it's got fighting mechs, so I mean, whatever.
There you go.
With this point though, it was funny because you start out, you're playing as a detective. And probably like half the game, it's all detective police work that you are doing. You are helping the public. You are helping investigate issues that are happening within the city. And nothing weird happens until you hit a very specific point and you're like, oh, this is where the mechs come in. This is where magic starts to be a thing. This is where, you know, something off the wall is going to happen, and I'm not quite sure what yet. And that's the part that I was really enjoying as well, is that it doesn't just, because it's still doing the world building for Crossbell, but it doesn't just throw you in to the Legend of Heroes lore of, yeah, no, this is all known stuff. Like, they have computers now.
Right.
They have this is when the quote unquote cell phones start to show up in this series. So it was just really cool experiencing it and seeing it. This is based off of this is a PSP port. And this is based off of the PSP, I guess, like battle system, and the quartz do not work at all the way they do now in the modern versions of the game. So that was a thing that I had to relearn. It's like, okay, the quartz system, I have to have like 10 wind quartz slotted, so that way I can unlock like this wind spell. But if I add like 20 water quartz to this, I unlock this ultra high revive cure spell and all this other weird stuff that I had to get back into the swing of things, because I haven't played that system since the PSP. So it's been a long time. But yeah, From Zero, I'm really looking forward to playing Azure when it comes out in February or March. I don't remember what they pushed it to, but that's going to close out the Crossbill series, and then Reverie comes out, and it's just going to be a whole mess next year. So yes, my number 5 is Trails from Zero, sorry.
My number 5, I hate that this is not higher in my list, because this year was really good, is
Just change it before you say it.
That's right. Oh, it's yeah. It's Horizon Forbidden West. I really love that first game, and I think their announcement of Forbidden West was like, yeah, of course you're gonna make another one. Like, why not? Sure. But it's not gonna be as good as the first one, so, you know, whatever. Like, how can lightning strike twice? And then, whoops, it's better than the first one. I think, if anything, if there's any real criticism of this game, it takes a really long time to get going. But once you do that Death's Door mission, and then it kind of shows you what you're gonna do, it's like, all right, I'm 100% in. I see what you're doing. We're doing this thing, and I'm all the way signed up for what this game is going for. I still think it's impressive that they managed to build upon the story of the first one, in a way that I think felt pretty natural. It wasn't like, oh well, let's retcon some stuff by saying like, well, look over here, we've discovered this. It's like, no, we're still kind of doing the thing. Lance Reddick continues to be great in these games. Big shout out to him. Ashley Birch is so good as
lot
Aloy.
of the voice acting in that game is really good.
Voice acting, the performance capture they do on seemingly every NPC in this game is absolutely wild. 2022 continues to be really good for side quests that actually matter and have stories instead of like, I want the 5 rabbit pelts. Like, it's not anything of that. It's like, all right, tuck in for a 2-hour-long story that is 3 missions and genuinely really good.
I can't tell you how many side missions I completed, and I was like, oh, this isn't even main story anymore.
Right, yeah, they're like, side quests complete, and you're like, oh, wow, really? I think, similar to the first one, this had a wild difficulty spike somewhere in the middle where I just set it to story difficulty and kind of shot my bow through the back half of that game and still had a whole lot of fun. They recently announced a piece of DLC, which I will purchase and play the moment that it is available, because I shockingly and genuinely really love this series, and I'm really looking forward to however the hell they make a third one of this, but really, really genuinely loved this game. I wholeheartedly recommend both of these. They are both so good, and this one managed to just be really great. And the tall necks are back, which makes me really happy. They're my little buddies. I love them. Yeah, the little buddies. The short, like 200-foot tall.
When you buy
ones.
the Lego set, like Boston and I have,
yeah,
they're little.
It's right over there. Yeah,
mine's like right there.
Yeah.
I like how, Boston's like, my little buddy, he's right there.
Yeah, the little guy up there is only like 1,200 pieces. Yeah,
little guy upstairs,
Yeah. But yes, my number 5 is Horizon Forbidden West. Moon, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Rogue Legacy 2. This is I'm not like Boston. I did not play the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So this was my first foray into the Rogue Legacy world. And, oh boy, now I understand completely why that is one of the best roguelikes out there. Like, why people won't shut up about it. It's understandable.
Yep.
It's so great. Like, the amount of stuff that they put in there, the amount of replayability, the accessibility options, folks.
Yes, a huge thing.
Like, that's a game changer for someone like me who absolutely does not have the time to, sink 5,000 hours into a game to quote-unquote get good.
But additionally, you can swing it both ways, so you can make the game easier or more difficult if you'd like.
Yep. It's so good. I don't know. I don't really know what else to say. Like, if you know it, you know it. If you don't, you should probably play Rogue Legacy 2. It's $25 and worth every cent.
If you know it, you're still building that castle, because boy, that's an addictive thing in that game.
And the prestige mode is back, and it's just like, okay.
Yep. Yeah. That game's great.
Rogue Legacy 2 is fantastic, and again, too many hours to explain to put into that thing as well. So yeah, that is my number 4. Rogue Legacy 2.
Don't forget to listen to our We Rogue Like It series for that. Came out this year. Nimp, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Elden Ring.
Mm-hmm.
Man, did I spend a lot of time playing this game and being horribly lost and in places I should not have been in.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say for a Souls game, this is probably the most quote unquote easily accessible one out of all of them. Just because you do get the co-op option where you can actually choose, like a friend can jump into your game. It's not like the other 3 where you just happen to be on at the same time and you set your glyphs just right, and maybe you get them, and oh nope, now I have to kick them out and redo it again. This one you can actively choose and lock your multiplayer so that people can join you. The summoning in this game that you can do, there was some broken stuff with the Mimic tier that I'm really sad that I did not get to enjoy before they patched it. But they've got such a wide and varied selection of summons that you can choose for just about any boss fight, and there's not one that will always work. Even though they nerfed the Mimic tier all the way down, it was still pretty viable for a lot of boss fights, including the end boss fight. And I ended up changing it. I forget who. I ended up using an assassin, Black Blade or something. I don't remember. It's been so long ago. But like you can just change up your summons on the fly and summon whoever you want. And for different, I guess, setups, some summons work better than other ones. You know, they help out. A lot of the weapons and equipment that you can get, a lot of the weapons from the original Dark Souls games are in this as well. And you just had the options to be able to change up your class to such a degree that like people were one-shotting bosses with magic spells.
Jeez.
I mean, if granted there was a lot of prep work, it's not like you were 2 hours in this game and one-shotting bosses. No, there was like talismans and skill sets and weapon skill sets and ashes that they had to get to be able to do this. But the reward was there for the effort and time you put into it to get it.
Yeah.
There are BS bosses all over in this game. Like Fire Troll, that's a wall that people hit and have not surpassed. And it was only because of my own stupidity and pride that I beat that thing. And for the people complaining too about, it's like, well, you know, there's a lot of reused bosses and enemies. That's Souls, man.
Yeah.
Like eventually you get to a point that a boss that you fought in the beginning of the game is just a common enemy. So
that's an RPG,
get over
man.
it. Yeah. Stop your gating and all that crap. But yeah, Elden Ring was it was fun. I really loved exploring that map. And like I said, that got me into a ton of trouble, but it was really fun finding new places, finding talismans that other people hadn't find yet, helping out with like the Google Doc that we all had going, not us podcast, but like the community had going, where it's like, hey, I ran into this thing and found this, and then everyone's like, oh, let's go check that out. Everyone finding the teleportation chest for the first time, the biggest screw job in that game besides the boss. Oh my god. But yeah, Elden Ring was a lot of fun. And I paused on that just because I'm remembering all the grief that game put me through. But yeah, so my number 4 is Elden Ring.
My number 4 is probably the biggest surprise one of the two biggest surprises this year, Marvel Snap. Certainly wasn't expecting this to be in my top 10 list this year. I certainly wasn't expecting to really love a card game for Marvel that seemingly came out of nowhere. I know it had been in beta for a long time and people really loved it, but it showed up one day and then all of a sudden everyone was playing it because not only is it good, but it doesn't feel greedy. It's a mobile game that seemingly is not that interested in taking all of your money. Sure, it sells packs in the store and you can buy in-game currency for money and it has a season pass, but the game doesn't, it'll be like, hey, there's a brand new season. See you later. You know, it's never always
has like 40 ads about how you can buy the payroll deduction version of.
Yeah, exactly. And like we were talking about earlier, the fact that it is, I almost never play mobile games where you are playing against another human being because I don't have the time to do that. I do not have dedicated X number of minutes to go play against someone real that could potentially take 3 hours or whatever. My longest Marvel Snap matches are maybe 4 minutes, and that's if the other person has fallen asleep. And they just don't take their turns. Typically, you are rocking in and out of there in 2 minutes, and win or lose, you typically have a really good match. And even if I get blown out by whatever horribly evil mastermind deck that they have, I've probably seen some new horror that someone has unleashed upon me, and that's kind of fun too. I don't take Marvel Snap super seriously. I don't care about my competitive rank or whatever. I'm just in there having a lot of fun, making a lot of decks, and just having a blast. And Like Escape Academy, this was one of the biggest surprises of the year. I'm super happy that both of them are here, and I think it's a testament that I have a mobile game in my top 5 this year, and it only came out 2 months ago. And that is how good Marvel Snap is, and how much it has just completely captured me 100%. So go play Marvel Snap and join the Discord. All right, top 3. Moon, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is definitely going to be talked about again. My number 3 is Tunic. One of the most charming, fun, like shockingly out of nowhere, but also super expected kind of games that came out this year. Like we all saw the pyramids, like art style, and like, cool, this looks great. How long is it going to be until it comes out? 6 years. Okay, I guess we'll be waiting for that for a while. And shockingly, it came out. And double shockingly, it's really, really good.
Yep.
Like Nib said, like that manual as a gameplay mechanic, like the way they use that to reveal more about the world and have those holy crap kind of moments that you get when you're playing that kind of Souls-like game, where it's like, wait, hold on, if I hold the A button, I kneel.
Yeah.
And it does what? And then you randomly test it on a different location and it does it, and it makes you feel like a super genius because you've figured something out before the manual has told you about it.
Never mind that you spent 6 hours staring at a manual.
Right.
It's like, it takes me back to the days of getting games and then reading the manual on the bus ride home because I couldn't, play it right then and there. Or getting something from Blockbuster and not having a manual to reference was just as stupid. It's charming. It's beautiful looking. Still didn't find the closet. Not once did I find the closet while I was playing that game.
Yep.
Where you can change how the fox looks. There's so many secrets and fun things. And then when, again, accessibility options, thank you, video games, for putting these things in. Especially with bosses as tough as this game can have. Some of the bosses are very difficult. And it was fantastic / terrible to go in and be absolutely the floor wiped all over me in certain cases.
Yep.
But finding the secrets, and my one negative for this game is something that's probably a very positive for Boston, which is the golden path, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. It's a really cool thing in the manual. I just wish people would stop referring to it as the golden path, because the golden path is from Dune. Stop stealing someone else's stuff.
The golden path. Yeah.
I know Tunic is fantastic. It's so charming and fun, and again, Game Pass for me. And I know Boston's probably bought it 4 times already.
Hey, it's only been 3.
Nailed it. But yeah, it's a fantastic game, and it deserves your time if you want to give it a shot and it sounds fun to you. It's why Tunic is my number 3.
All right, Nimp, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is God of War Ragnarok. I completely agree with what you said earlier, Boston, where the game does definitely hit a lull and at certain points and just can't seem to get out of its own way. I also, without spoiling anything, I also felt that the final fight was kind of weak, considering what you're doing.
Yep.
But outside of that, though, I really enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed that they just picked up where 2018 left off, and there was a little bit of a time skip, and they're like, hey, this is what's happening now, and it seems to actually be maturing in its own story. It also doesn't help that towards the end something great happens, and don't play Cat's Cradle in the background while you're playing a game about father-son issues. And but yeah, I platinumed this game, so this automatically puts it in the top 5 somewhere.
Yep.
And I enjoyed it that much that I took the time to get the platinum, and I'm really looking forward to see what they do with another game. I just hope that they kind of learn some of the harder lessons, because like I said, I feel like this game in particular could have been split into 2 different games. Like, this should have been the middle game,
Sure.
and at some point they should have cut it off and made the rest of that the third game to put more time into it.
Yeah.
But as it is now, it's still a really good game. I would highly recommend playing this game, and the axe just feels great. And actually, all your weapons really feel really great to use and play.
Yep.
And the extra characters that you get that follow you around sometimes, and the extra story and lore that you get from them, and the more that you learn about the different types of creatures and other beings in this game is just fantastic. And I just can't wait to see if they do pick it up for another game, where they go.
Yeah.
Because I've been talking a lot with Optimus from the community, and we've been going back and forth on different pantheons, or just them staying where they're at now and just kind of continuing from there. And I could go either way. So,
Right.
yeah, so my number 3 is God of War Ragnarok.
Oh boy, my top 3 are all interchangeable at this point, I guess. But my number 3 is Vampire Survivors. One of those few games that was in early access for a while that people wouldn't shut up about, and you're like, yeah, I get it, Vampire Survivors. Okay, like I'll try it out. Yeah, Nim's raising his hand over there. But very few of those games live up to any level of hype when they're kind of in their full release. Moon and I have some criticisms of roguelikes that are in early access for a very long time. And we've sort of run afoul of a number of those. But boy, Vampire Survivors lives up to all of that and more. There's just... I mentioned it on We Roguelike It. It is the perfect arcade game. Your runs will last, with very few exceptions, your runs will last 30 minutes. You can get in, you can get a couple done, you can get out, or you can just tuck in for 5 hours in a row and just try to get through that. The genius of the unlocks page, giving you just a field of check marks, just to say, here's another thing to try. What will you unlock if you do this? There's another new character here. What are you going to do if you unlock that one? Will you use anybody other than Poe? Probably not. It really is the strengths of roguelikes distilled down into an arcade format. I couldn't imagine how good something like this would have been in arcades when we were growing up. It is so tightly designed. It is so well made. There's so much stuff in this game. I haven't even unlocked all of the characters. I don't even know if there's an end to unlocking the characters. DLC just came out with more characters and more stuff. And it's the lofty price of $2.
Or $1.79 if you get it on sale right now.
There you go. Vampire Survivors is really good. It is like Marvel Snap, like Escape Academy. It's a genuine surprise this year. I almost never finish roguelikes for We Roguelike It. Number one, because most of them are like 400 hours long. But I just could not stop playing Vampire Survivors this year. I will buy that DLC as soon as it's my reward for finishing editing these episodes. Because I can't install it before I have finished my work. But as soon as that's over, I'm going to go dive back into that, and I'm super excited to do so. Vampire Survivors is just so good. That's why it's my number 3. Moon, number 2.
Oh, these choices are all anything but a snap, because they were very difficult. In fact, one might say it's a marvel that we got this far.
All right, moving on to the next
Boo!
one.
It's Marvel Snap. My number 2 is Marvel Snap. I don't play mobile games. I don't. I will jump in, play them for about 2 weeks, and jump out almost immediately. Oh boy, this game is just, there is something so special about it. Literally being in and out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, jump in, you jump out. Matches are quick. The missions are done pretty good. Like, nothing feels overwhelming. And the only downside right now is I don't have all the cards I need. Like, I
Right.
need more cards. Give me more cards.
Right.
Like, I have a bunch of titles. I like the fact that they're aware of their own issues enough to throw in a bunch of like titles that are self-referential.
Like, this matchmaking sucks.
That's the one.
Yep.
I think my one the other day was what, a pile of garbage or something, which
Yep.
is okay. But it's a fun game. I like the evolution of the cards, the evolution of the colors and everything else that's going on. Getting the rainbow versions, and then I know technically they're hologram versions, but I'm referring to them as rainbow. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting the sparkly rainbow versions and like the
Yeah.
15 different variants. Like, I'm very disappointed, Boston, because like I have like 6 versions of Carnage now, and I'm no longer running a destruction deck. It's really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. Not all those are Mackie with our terrible look, but
Yep.
some of us have fun with it, and some of us run a move deck for 6 months because screw you guys, I like my move deck. No, Marvel Snap is fantastic, and
Yep.
it's just quick enough to be great, not slow enough to be annoying, and like the artwork is incredible. Some of that artwork is chef's kiss amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have an entire channel that doesn't shut up about it
Yep.
on our community channel, it's like, okay, sure.
Yep.
I guess. I don't know. My number 2, Marvel Snap. It is great. Give me more cards, please.
Nimp, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is Vampire Survivor.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. 1, I 100%ed it.
Nice.
2, I don't like roguelikes.
Right.
But yeah, but back when I played this on PC when it came out to early access, I really enjoyed it just for how simplistic it was. But it's got a lot of depth behind that simplicity that is hard for video games to come back around on. It's either something that's always very, very difficult, or like the system is just really minute and you just have to pull out an Excel sheet and figure it out.
Right.
Or it's so simplistic you're just hitting a button and then everyone complains that all you're doing is hitting a button. This game, you only move a thumbstick. That is your interaction with the game. That's it. Everything else auto fires and it just works. And figuring out this the synergy between some of the stupidest things they have in here, like the the dog that farts flowers, the panda that throws like a ball or a cookie or something that explodes. It's just, oh my god, it's so fun. I will say though, Queen Sigma is a very, very good backup for Poe.
Yes.
But she's also like the very last thing that you unlock.
Yep.
So there's kind of a reason. But yeah, it's very rare for me to lose track playing games. Like, I'll put a lot of time into a game in one sitting, but this is definitely one of those games where it got me with all right, I've been sitting here for like half hour, let's see what's going on, and then 5 hours later, I've completed a bunch of runs, and maybe I made some progress, maybe I didn't, but I was still having fun blowing things up.
Right.
And my biggest achievement is a screenshot that I have on our Discord of my character basically turning into a sun and my Series X just chugging, trying to make this work. And it's not that graphically intensive of a game.
No.
And it's a lot of fun, man. It's a great, just turn your mind off, pop on a podcast or watch a show while you're doing it. And as long as you're hitting your DPS checks, like, you just let that thing run.
Yep.
And you don't even worry about it. So I did buy the DLC. I have unlocked 2 of the characters so far, and then I had to stop myself from playing the game before I continued on. So,
Right.
because I got other things that I need to hurry up and finish before the end of the year, before next year starts.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, my number 2 is Vampire Survivor.
My number 2 is Citizen Sleeper. This will probably come as no surprise for anybody that has been near me, and I won't shut up about Citizen Sleeper. But I think Nimp, you earlier said it best. Like it really does feel like when a game nails that tabletop RPG kind of pen and paper and dice system, it feels so good. Like it has your kind of risk reward stuff with the dice. I think it's a really smart system to have you slotting dice into actions in locations, and the game giving you an option saying, like, you can put this 4 in there. You got a 50-50 chance of it going really well or really poorly. How much do you need that food or medicine, or how much do you need to try to push this to finish this quest? I adore the writing in this game. Like I've said many, many times before, I really love Cyberpunk, but Cyberpunk so often gets too mired in the hopelessness of it. The corporations are ruling our lives. The body modification is a necessity rather than a desire. And you're kind of all alone in this neon-tinged nightmare. And I think the thing that Citizen Sleeper does, and why it's so high on my list, is it really does emphasize found family. And it really does emphasize you have escaped a bad situation to put yourself in a potentially worse one, but you can make it with your community. You can make it with your friends. You can find your own ending to this story, whatever it is. My ending, I skipped all 5 of the potential endings, or however many there were. And the game even gave me another ending, say like, hey, you decided to stay and make your own home on the Eye, as opposed to kind of doing one of these other avenues. And I think that's really cool. My only desire for this game, and I'm going to be watching this guy's development on future titles very closely, is that I wish the skill tree choices that you make were a little bit more impactful. There were a couple here and there that made a pretty nice change, where it's like, oh, every time you go to slot a dice in this type, you automatically get +2 on top of it. Those were pretty powerful, but a lot of them were sort of like, that's not going to make a difference, and it really didn't. But music is great, writing is really solid, art style is really, really great. He does so much with so little in this game, and it really is a bright spot on RPGs, and it's sort of a visual novel, and it's a tabletop RPG at the same time. It's really great, and it's also doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a handful of hours long. It's very snappy. You're kind of making choices the entire time, and it's just a great game. It's any of these top 3 could have been moved around, but Citizen Sleeper is at the top of my list, kind of no matter what. So go play it. Moon, your number 1, your top game of 2022.
Get ready for the hate
mail.
There's
only one. There's only one game I haven't mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It's Vampire Survivor.
Right.
It's the game I needed this year. I needed something quick, nom 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 nom, like quick nom nom nom, quick nom nom nom, snack bites, blood banks, if you will. I needed something arcadey. I needed something I didn't need to invest a bunch of time into. I can't remember if it was recording or otherwise, but like sometimes I've only got 30 minutes a day to play video games right now.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, what do you know? Vampire Survivor slots nicely into that 30 to 45 minute window. when you add in all of the animation time and the chests and the
So,
traces and everything
so you
else.
unlock Oops All Endless and
Yes. It was exactly what I needed. You guys have spoken a lot about it already. There's not a whole lot to add on. We did a wee roguelike hit. Go listen to that if you want us to break it down even further. But it's ranking episode of that is particularly great, by the way. If you
if you haven't listened to the synergy that Moon and I sometimes have, you should really listen to that ranking episode.
It's a fantastic game, and yet it may be a clone. This clone happened to hit it big. Most things are clones. Spoiler alert. Avatar is Pocahontas, etc., etc. It's a great game. The music is fantastic, and also it lets me listen to podcasts while I play, which is really, really fun for me. When, like I said, my time is not as valuable as it used to be.
Also, one thing that
available.
One thing that I forgot to mention when I was talking about it earlier, and one thing that I think has been a frustration of ours in roguelikes is often roguelikes don't let you become powerful. It will stop you. It will risk of rain to you. It will do something. Vampire Survivors is like, all right, you're very overpowered. Can you get more overpowered? Like how crazy overpowered how much can you break this game? And I dearly love it for that.
Yeah, it's the difference between like Super Saiyan fat muscles and Super Saiyan 2. Like, it's ridiculous.
Right.
Like how far it lets you go. And it always gives you a checkpoint too, like or rather a goal point. It's like, here is a list of everything you haven't unlocked. Do one of them. It's not just like, yeah, you can jump in. There is even a random button, so you can jump in on a random level with a random character and that you've unlocked. Like, but if you're looking for a target, there is one right there for you where you're just like, yep, this is a target. This is something I'm going to go for. Let's go and do and get the milk on the on the dairy
plant level.
Which was hilarious because I figured out how to do that and I was like, okay, I guess that's something I did. I now have a giant ball of meat as one of my characters, which is like, okay, I guess
it's so good.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like the final boss tier.
Like Vampire Survivors is incredible. And I will continue to fly my flag of you with the vampires all along.
That's right.
But yeah, my number one is Vampire Survivor. Go play it. It's on Game Pass. It's on PC. I'm sure it will come out to everything else sooner rather than later.
It's on mobile for free. Yeah. Nimp, what is your top game of 2022?
My top game of 2022 is Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Yeah.
You guys remember back in 2021 when I had beat that game and I said the ending of that game is the game that I want to play now?
Right.
This is that game.
Right.
Between the class system that they have in here where you get basically like a hero character that follows you around, and as you do battles, your characters will learn that class. And then they become proficient in it, and they can teach other characters that class by just having it equipped. There's like 20 some odd of those things. So, and you have 7 characters, including the hero characters or the temporary characters following you around the entire time. So you can make some pretty weird party combinations, and you can. Oh my god! Just like I'm thinking, there's like this pirate guy that you get eventually who his class is basically a blue mage where you have to go hunt down certain enemies and defeat them, and then you learn more abilities for that class.
Oh wow.
There's like all the healing classes, they can heal you, but they can also, depending on the class, you have the attacking healer where they will heal your party based off of the attack damage that they did. Or there's another healer class where it's like they will buff you and they will heal you, or there's another one where they will heal your party but they will debuff the enemies. So it's like you can literally create your own customized party to do whatever it is that you needed to do at that point in time. The thing that I find absolutely amazing is that there is no separation between male and female characters.
Mm.
What I mean by this is that if you have a hero class that you've unlocked and it is a female character, when you activate that class on a male character, they are wearing the exact same costume.
That's great.
So, and you can kind of tell where they've hemmed it a little bit for it to fit a male, but it still looks like a female costume. So, and the story with it, there have been towards the end, there are a couple bombs that they drop on you when you're like, oh wow, okay, this is connected to this, and this does do this thing that I thought it does. And then at the end they just show you like a picture of something and you're like, what the hell? So I would say that this third game is a really good closer for this trilogy, and I really, really hope they make another one that is based off of the ending of this one, because once again they've done it where it's like, I've gotten to the end of the game and now I want to play the story that's happening at the end of this game now.
Right.
Because they do some stuff where it's like, man, that is really interesting and I want to see what happens now.
Right.
So Xenoblade Chronicles 3, they are still, what, since 1997 knocking out the Xeno.
Right. Killing it with the Xeno games.
Yeah. So that is my number one.
My top game this year should come as no surprise that it is Tunic. Been waiting for this game for 7 years or something when it was originally called Secret Legend, and comes out that it's cute Tiny Fox Zelda Dark Souls. I think the thing that captured me is the kind of level of puzzling and discovery and wonder that we got in things like Fez and The Witness. That kind of, we're going to turn you loose on the world with zero information and go do something. You also need to figure that out. With the kind of added layer of not being able to read the text in this game except for kind of specific instances.
Like no talking either.
Yeah, there's no talking. Any text is in its own little font. And then adding on top of that, this game is perfectly paced with how often and where you get the instruction manual pages. And it gives you the exact information you need to know to not only go to the next thing you need to go to, but it's also giving you that little thing where you're like squinty eyes, like, that looks familiar. That must be a thing. Let me go find one of those before I do the next thing. Let me go find that and see what I can do. And they're like, okay, yeah, cool. That's more stuff. Obviously the Golden Path stuff is great. I don't want to spoil that here because it's very much like The Witness. It's critical to kind of the second half of that game. I will agree with you, Nimp, that I think that the combat is probably the weakest part of this game. I am very happy for the I think they call it God mode, essentially the invincibility stuff that it was either there at the launch or very quickly. It's a highly recommended part of the experience if you're kind of, I think that's the static that most people are running into is the combat is either not clicking with them or it's too difficult or the puzzles are the goal. Just turn that stuff on and call it a day. Tailor the experience to what you're really looking forward to. Don't kind of keep hitting your head against the brick wall there.
Because if you don't want a God mode, they have an infinite stamina mode too. So I mean, you can pick and choose what you want to add, and like you were saying, how difficult you want it to be or how easy you want it to be.
Yeah, you can make the game more difficult if you really want. Like that's an option too. So Tunic really is a me game. I really do highly value these kind of stranger in a strange world, no instructions, no guidance, kind of mystery puzzle games. And Tunic is one of three. You got Fez, you got The Witness, and you got Tunic. They're all kind of spiritual successors of each other, made by totally different people and teams. And Tunic is something really special that I really loved, and it's a lot like Horizon Forbidden West, something I was really looking forward to, and it came out and it was way better than I was expecting it to be, which I feel is a pretty rare thing. That's why it's my top game of 2022. Whew. There we go. Our lists are complete. So, last thing here, talk about before we leave you all, games I missed. We're going to talk about the missed connections we had here and the very busy 2022. Moon, why don't you run us down your list of games you missed in this year?
Okay. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that again this year. The Pedestrian. That's the side-scrolling platformer through start signs.
Man, hold on, I gotta add that to my list. Yep.
Dying Light, Stay Human. Ollie Ollie World. Sifu, Elden Ring, Stray, God of War Ragnarok, anything that came out on the PlayStation this year. Axiom Verge 2.
Yep.
Boston. Cares to Golf, Ooblets, which came out this year, much to my surprise.
I forgot about that.
Missed that one.
Yeah.
Bear and Breakfast, and some of the interesting ones. Deathloop, Grounded, Scorn, all kind of early access / Deathloop and Grounded released on other things. Scorn just didn't have time to play. Plague Tale Requiem, Alan Wake Remastered, Gotham Knights I did not put enough time into.
Yeah. Nimp, what games did you miss in 2022?
All right, I have Live a Live, Edge of Eternity, Horizon Forbidden West, which I am working through, but I don't feel like I've gotten far enough to really speak on it for a Game of the Year list.
It's a big one.
Yeah, but it's enjoyable. I will say that. Anno Mutationum. That's the side-scrolling.
I don't have that on my list. Oh, I'm gonna put that on my other list.
Still waiting for my limited edition, limited run games copy to come in. Diofield Chronicle, because that just isn't. Yeah, that looks like a fun strategy game.
To my list.
And Valkyrie Elysium.
Yes.
I know that there are a bunch of them that I am still missing that I haven't played yet, but those are the big ones that I could think of that stick out.
Yeah.
So.
I got 12 games on my list here. Chained Echoes is the it kind of came out right before we started recording this, so it will probably count for next year. A kind of 16-bit love letter. They're like, what would you do to save your world? Also, you get in a mech. And it's like, oh, okay. Yep. Curse to Golf, which I really wanted to play this year, but we'll probably play on We Rogue Like It. Live a Live, like Nimp mentioned, I just didn't get around to it. Same with Marvel's Midnight Suns, a game I continually forget that it actually came out. People seem to really like it. I just have not gotten around to it yet. Yeah. Need for Speed Unbound is a game that...
like, every video I see of that, I'm like, man...
Looks real good, and...
I say everyone says it's pretty fun.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying it's real good, and I just have not... It has not been at the top of my list yet. Norco, I played maybe about 15 minutes of that. Really like it. I just didn't get to the rest of it. Signalis, really want to play that. Just have not had the 2 or 3 hours to sit down without a child around to play through a scary game. Stray, I think I played a hot 15 minutes of that and didn't get back to it. Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. I really want to play this at some point because it's the right amount of bonkers that Final Fantasy needs to be. I haven't talked about it on the show. The Case of the Golden Idol. If you liked Return of the Obra Dinn, hey, someone else made one like that. It's The Case of the Golden Idol. Yeah.
Nice.
The Night Witch recently came out. That's that kind of 2D side-scrolling, flying in the air Metroidvania sort of thing. And Triangle Strategy. I just didn't get to that this year as much as I was looking forward to it. I just never got around to it, unfortunately.
I completely forgot that it came out this year until Feyron told me, and I was like, oh, that's right, that was an early 2022 game.
It was very early Switch and PC thing. Yep. That's all the stuff I missed. 2022, like we said, happy that we all three of us had vastly different lists this year. But man, 2022 was a really great year this year for video games. We've had a couple of really great years back to back, but feels like 2022 had a lot of really surprise hits, a lot of small bangers, like Moon said, a lot of indie games showing up on our list, especially really high, which is uncommon.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of great stuff for this year. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening to the show. I think we had a really great year, not only in video games, but for the podcast. And I appreciate everyone listening. Don't forget, next week, we're still off on vacation, but we'll be coming out with the 2023 predictions episode, which is always fun. We always get to laugh at ourselves about what we hilariously got wrong in predictions, or maybe accidentally got totally right. So that episode is always a great one. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Happy New Year.